We got a final in the Sunday Nighter, and you could put it down as no contest. If this was a measuring stick between 1 and 2, well, there's some space between the two. The 49ers putting up 42 on the Dallas Cowboys at home to improve to 5-0. That's 5-0 with 30-plus points in each of those victories. And this one comes with the historic context of this matchup. Dallas, a no-show. All right, let's dive in with Lige Douzable into what we saw, and in the case of the Dallas Cowboys, what we did not see. This was somewhere between preseason and homecoming. Helmets and shoulder pads were popped for the starters by the start of the fourth. Let's go Brock Purdy first, because if there was any lingering doubt for anybody out there, this should dispel that doubt. 17-24, 252, 4 touchdowns. He's had better statistic days, but this seemed like the cleanest performance of his young career.
Yeah, I'm glad we're starting here because I am tired of the hoopla and people saying that Brock Purdy is a system quarterback. I mean, what else does this kid have to do? We saw so many times in zone coverage him hitting the whole shot, him hitting Brandon Ayuk on in-breaking routes in zone coverage, hitting Deebo Samuel in zone coverage. It's not just him playing within the system. He's making elite throws in this system, Moose, when you talk about Brock Purdy. So, again, I don't want to hear that this guy is a system quarterback. He's playing elite football right now. And honestly, he should be in the MVP race. You heard it here first. Brock Purdy should be considered an MVP candidate right now.
The man has not lost as a starting quarterback in the regular season. Still perfect in that regard. The Christian McCaffrey numbers are gaudy as well. There were 3 George Kittle touchdowns in this one. So much we could get to, but I want to touch upon something that we talked about pregame. That was a play of Micah Parsons, almost non-existent in this box score relative to what we know him to be. How did they render him ineffective? Was it in line with the game plan that you sort of rolled out pregame for us?
I was going to say, Moose, they might have tuned into the pregame show and saw what I talked about because they got him involved in the run action early and often, whether it was Juszczyk, the fullback, hitting him on toss plays, whether it was Trent Williams on a down block, knocking him down the line of scrimmage. They made Micah Parsons play in the run game. And if you want to have success, you got an aggressive guy that likes to chase running backs down from the backside. Put him in the run action. That slows him down in pass rushes. And then when he had an opportunity to get after the passer, it wasn't just one guy blocking him, Moose. It was a chipper, whether it was a tight end, a running back. They never let him get one-on-one situations with any offensive tackles unless it was Trent Williams, because that's why you pay him a lot of money. He is the best left tackle in football. 1
solo, 3 assists for Parsons. We came into this game, and rightfully so, talking about 2 of the best edge rushers in the game. But I want to talk about the man in the middle of this San Francisco defense. Fred Warner, especially in the first half when the thing was still competitive, proved himself to be the best at his position in this game as well. To have that sort of stalwart in the middle of a defense, what does that do for everything around it?
Makes it so much easier. I mean, he is the captain of that defense. One would say maybe even the team. Like, as Fred Warner goes, that team goes. You saw it early in the game, Moose. Him with a perfect Peanut Tillman punch, punching the ball out, getting the ball back for his offense. We saw him later on in zone coverage. He was on the other side of the hash, sprint to get the tip pass and get an interception. He just plays with so much juice, but it's his intelligence, right? He has so much intelligence. He knows what you're going to do before you even do it. He's always one step ahead of offensive linemen in the run game, and then he just does a masterful job in man coverage and in zone coverage, knowing where to hug to the receivers to get PBUs, and you saw today, interceptions. This guy is the best linebacker in football, and Dre Greenlaw is actually not that far behind him. He even talked about that during the game today. Like, he sometimes gets overshadowed, Dre Greenlaw, because of Fred Warner, but he's playing at an elite level as well, too.
Such is the story with many of the great linebackers we've talked about in this game. Always a nice will on the outside, someone to clean up some of that trash, get their name in the clippings as well. This was supposed to be that measuring stick at the top of the NFC. This was not that. Talent, toughness, coaching, everything going to the San Francisco side of the ledger in this game. If Dallas wants to be talked about in the same sentence as this team, where do they have to be better?
They have to be complementary on offense. I mean, that's the issue, and we saw it earlier this year when they played the Arizona Cardinals. If they're not getting pick sixes, if they're not getting 4 or 5 sacks, they struggle on offense, and they struggle to score points. We saw it in the Jets game. Even when they put up over 30 points, Moose, they struggle scoring touchdowns in the red zone. So they have to go back to the drawing board and look, each other in the mirror. If you're the Dallas Cowboys, this was a measuring stick game. This is a team that knocked us out of the playoffs the last 2 years. You would think the energy level for the Dallas Cowboys would be there. Now, I would say they came out strong. Were able to get that fumble from Christian McCaffrey early in the game. But besides that, and that one drive that they had for a touchdown where Turpin caught the touchdown pass, it was almost null and void for the Dallas Cowboys. So you talked about a measuring stick. They have a ways to go to be even talked about in the same realm of the San Francisco 49ers right now.
Well, speaking of a ways to go in complementary offense, I think that starts with the man who's always at the center of the conversation for the Cowboys, Dak Prescott. Not great in this one either. 3 interceptions, 1 came with the game well out of hand already. Yeah. I don't want to ask the lazy Dak question of can you win, where can you go, but how does Dak get to a place where he can be that guy who's taking this team to the mountaintop?
Well, if you look at it, when they had success on that one drive is what we talked about in the pregame show. Him being decisive with the football, knowing where to go with it, and throwing it with accuracy. We talked about this, Moose, while we were watching this game. The times he got in trouble when he was burping the baby in the pocket, right? Whether it was him trying to find CeeDee Lamb and staring him down, and Fred Warner coming off of coverage and getting the sack, whether it's Nick Bosa coming off the edge and him going through his progressions and not getting rid of the ball and getting a sack that way. And you talked about it. I think he started to press at the end of that game. Essentially threw up a punt ball to the safety for San Francisco and getting an interception. I believe it was Gibson that got an interception. And then when the second and third stringers were in for the 49ers, he stared a receiver down and threw another interception. So if you're Mike McCarthy, keeping Dak Prescott in late in that game actually, I would think, hurt his confidence, especially because this is the one team, we talked about it, Moose, that for some reason Dak Prescott can just not get over the hump when it comes to the San Francisco 49ers. So he's got to look in the mirror as well and go back to that New York Jets game. That's the game plan for Dak Prescott. When you're playing a defensive line that gets after you, you have to be decisive with the football, know where to go with it, and be accurate with it as well.
He better learn how to get over that hump because that hump ain't going nowhere. 5-0 to start the season for the San Francisco 49ers, one of 2 undefeated teams, the other also in the NFC in the form of the Eagles. Maybe that's our true 1-2 on that side and maybe league-wide. Do you agree with that? Are you seeing an AFC team to mix in there? I mean, we don't have to make any grand statements right now, but power ranking right now, it's got to be San Francisco, pause everybody else.
I think that's the hierarchy right now, right? San Francisco, then the Eagles. And the crazy thing is the Eagles went to the Super Bowl last year. And yes, it's kind of like you compare Georgia this year, right? They haven't played their best, but yet you look at the scoreboard moves, they still put up 30 points and win. So what does that say about a team when they're not playing their best or not playing up to the standard and still blowing everybody out every week? So I know everybody cannot wait, and it is circled on the calendar when the San Francisco 49ers head up to Philadelphia and play the Eagles. That is the game everybody will be tuned in for. I think we'll see who the best team in football is when those 2 teams square off.
December 3rd cannot roll around soon enough. Dudes, we appreciate you weighing in on all things NFC and beyond, but this is the beyond. Perfect in regular season football. Brock Purdy, his 10 starts, undefeated. That streak lives on. Completion percentage north of 70%. Touchdown to interception, exactly what you're looking for. Forget the system. This is the quarterback. Brock Purdy, still perfect.